So here we've hit plot surf, and it does what you think it might do. It plots a surface. You have a function of two variables, x and y, so you have this square box, a cubic box rather, and the height of the surface is the value of the function. Now, let's get the mouse back on. We can spin things around. You can see we've got transparency built into the surface. We can turn that on and off. We can have specular lighting and various nice effects like that. I can move it around with the mouse, and again we can hold the left key down. Anyway, once you've got your data looking the way you want it, change the lighting and the colours and all kinds of stuff. Just go back to F1. So for instance, light position box, light colour box. Light colour box is F7. Material colour box is F8. So I'll just press F1 again and then press F8, and okay, you've got alpha, which is to do with transparency and so on, and then you've got red, green and blue. Ambient components for the materials, diffuse, specular. So you've got three components there, and that's for materials. Oh, material 2 is red. I'll have to look at my own documentation so I can actually remember how to do that. So we can have lots of fun with this. Let's get the mouse back on, and we can play around with this until we get everything the way we want. That would be an unusual one to try and publish, but yeah, we could do that. We can have lots of fun doing this. Well, I think I always find these kinds of things a little bit fascinating, so that's just me, perhaps. Sorry. One tiny thing I forgot to mention about PlotSurf is it plots multiple surfaces if you want it to. This time we have Plot World, and it does the obvious. It gives you world map, which you saw a little fragment of in Plot Globe program. It has data across the entire globe, and it plots it according to colour and draws contours on for you. So it's a good way of looking at science data. The map obviously helps you locate actually where it is in the world, planet Earth. We've got control up and down, and we do have zoom. So there you are, you can move things around until it's going to look good in your document, and print it to bitmap or print it to PostScript. Again, if you're doing anything in earth science, this kind of stuff is very useful indeed. Both Plot Globe and Plot World can be used to do this kind of thing. This is pretty well the standard way of doing it. The map I use is a Mercator projection, which is infamous for exaggerating the continents nearer the poles. So Antarctica is absolutely huge down here, and Alaska and Canada and the northern countries and Russia all look much bigger than they really are. So for some reason people thought that this was like a political map saying that Africa, which is a huge continent, is comparatively small and unimportant. Well, it looks important enough to me, even on a Mercator projection. But anyway, people who write essays for a living tend to think that for some reason. And here we are in what is at the moment the last of the plot files. And the last of the plot files is called PlotVol. PlotVol might take a little bit of explaining, so let's have a go. But first of all, we'll just have a look at it. So what on earth is going on here? Well, first of all, the data is in a file called data.dat, and it is a function of 3 variables. We saw earlier on we had a surface that was where the height was a function of 2 variables, but now we've got a more complicated function because data depends on not just x and y but also on z. So an example of data like that would be the 3-dimensional temperature map of, let's say, a swimming pool. You might have sort of hot spots in a certain depth and in the middle of the pool or towards one end and so on and so on. So what's going on here? Well, PlotVol has read in the data, is defined in 3 dimensions, given x, y and z, and what it's done is it's plotted isosurfaces, basically like equivalent of contours, but instead of lines, because we've moved up a dimension, the contours are actual surfaces. So this is basically, what would you call it, a 3-dimensional graph or a 4-dimensional graph? Well, the height of the graph is in the 4th dimension, so I'll call it 4-dimensional, and what you actually see is, instead of some curvy line as a contour, you see a curvy surface. That's a very useful file to have. I think it's fairly unique. I don't really recall seeing any graphics routine that actually does this for you and does it easily too. So we can use the up and down arrows, control up and down arrows and so on. This is all arrow keys to explore our surface and look at it from all kinds of different points of view. And as with all the plot files, you've got F11 and F12 for printing the data out once you've decided that you like it. Again, you've got all kinds of things you could do with material colours and lighting colours and light positions and diffuse and specular and so on. And of course you can switch transparency on and off and all kinds of stuff. Toggle transparency is B. So there you are. Let's do so there we are. We switched the transparency off and we can see all kinds of solid surfaces, and we can switch the transparency back on again. You get a much better picture of what's going on with the transparency than without, but for some applications you won't want that transparency, so it really depends on the application and what you think looks good. It's all up to you. Remember when we got rid of transparency, some of these surfaces were very dark, and the reason for that is I haven't bothered that much with the surface normals, but you can fix things with Flipperbox. To get Flipperbox, all we have to do is press F and we get this strange little box here, and what this does is flip the surface normals. So here, for instance, we can flip that one. Ah yes, the top left corner is flipped using that one. Ah, here we go. We can get rid of that terribly dark surface, and these ones are there. So you don't have black surfaces or surfaces in deep shadow. Anyway, it's still giraffes per season, yearly loss per tonne, and daily quota in kilograms per year for lions and bears per area, I think. Anyway, that's PlotVol, which is probably the most sophisticated and unusual of the plot files.